Spices and what to do with them and how to handle them and all that. You definitely want to buy spices in smaller quantities more frequently, as much as you can. What I like to do is mark the date. When I buy something, I just get a cute little sticker, right? And I write the date on it and I just stick it somewhere on the jar. Big category, pepper flakes, spiciness, not so spicy. I've got classic kind of the pizzeria red pepper flakes that you sprinkle on your slice before you eat them with the garlic powder. This is a mixture of different red peppers that are dried and crushed up with the seeds. So the seedier the batch, the spicier, you know? Aleppo, which is a Syrian pepper. These are dried red peppers, oily. A warm, slow burn heat, slightly smoky, one of my favorites. Similar kind of cousin to Aleppo, another favorite, Marash pepper. The Marash I find maybe a touch smokier, a touch earthier. I don't do much to these pepper flakes. When I use them, these peppers are pretty oily, and once they get dropped in or on something that hydrates them, they go to town. Whole spices versus powdered spices, who, what, where. Couple of my favorite whole spices. Oh, whole coriander seed. I am just obsessed. Coriander is the seed, the plant is cilantro. So if you want to kind of finish it off with a nose to tail vibe, you could use cilantro. These are so, they're floral, I love it. You can crush them with a mortar and pestle. Just crush the seeds by rolling them around. You can do this on a cutting board with a saute pan if you don't have a mortar and pestle. But as you grind them up, it breaks the seeds, it crushes them. Why crush them? Crushing them opens them up. As you're doing it, you can see that floral aroma just developing and building. And then you're gonna say to me, okay, you just took a whole spice and crushed it up. Shouldn't I just buy the powdered stuff? No. The powder just sits in the jar like, yes, I look pretty, I'm ready for my close-up, but you're losing some of the impact of those flavors. A couple different ways you can wake spices up like this, and you can see how just crushing those coriander seeds has opened them all up. And I'm just dropping them in a cool skillet over a very low heat to toast them. You can do this on a baking sheet and just pop it in the oven for a few minutes. Another kind of funky whole seed that I love, whole mustard seeds. Guess what you get if you crush up mustard seeds? Dry mustard. Whole, powdered, love them both. These are hard though to eat. They end up being like birdseed. I like to cook them in water. So I'm boiling some mustard seeds to show you. Got another whole caraway, I love that. The heart and soul of rye bread. You could also add some oil or butter, right? And give them a little bit of fat to coat them as you toast them. You can add a pinch of salt, right? So as we're toasting these, we're adding this fat and we're also seasoning them. Salt is part of what wakes up spices. You could literally drop these toasted, salted coriander and caraway seeds on top of anything. You could drop it on top of butter and just serve it with bread and butter on the table. You could smear this on a piece of fish, some broccoli, a steak. Dry mustard powder, I love it. It's got a tingly mustardy heat. If you just put some dry mustard powder in here, just to give an example of what happens when you hydrate things on a different level. And this is a great thickener. If you're making a little beef stew and you don't want to use cornstarch or flour, you can mix a little dry mustard powder with a little water and a little olive oil and whisk this into your stew and let it cook for that last half an hour or 45 minutes. And it gives this wonderful taste and body, and it thickens, right? Because mustard has a natural thickener in it, lecithin. It's Mother Nature's thickener. Much better than cornstarch, and that's a big trick for me. Honestly, I think if you threw away all my spices and said, you could keep one of these, I'd be good. Mustard powder, dry ginger. This is great. This is a great companion to the classics, right? The pumpkin pie spice crew, I like to call them, the cool kids, the mean girls. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, right? But dry ginger kind of sneaks in the building at the last minute and says, you need me. Because it's got a warm, tingly heat. Without being spicy, it just lifts up, it elevates, like that perfect splash of vinegar in a salad dressing. And another one, ground allspice. You can buy the whole allspice berries If you do, I put those in the spice grinder and make the powder. So good. This I like in sweet or savory preparations. It's not past me to put a pinch of this in my cream spinach, in my potato gratin, in a lot of places where you're making something savory and you just need that little pick-me-up. You can also use a spice grinder for these, right? So I could take some of these caraway seeds, for example, and some coriander. Again, what we just toasted whole on the stove, and you can approach it from a different angle, right? And that way we can get those spice powders and make them in the quantities we need them, instead of having a whole jar of powder hanging out in your drawer. The more whole you keep your spices, the longer they'll keep and the fresher they'll be when you either heat them and toast them on the stove or in the oven, whether you hydrate them and boil them in water, or whether you grind them, which is fun, and make your own spice mixes. You see the word garam masala a lot. A garam masala is really any spice blend, right, that we make. And look at that. So whether we take this coriander and caraway and grind up the whole spices like this, whether we crush them with a mortar and pestle and then toast them or add fat, or whether we hydrate them, these are the different ways we can wake up our spices in our drawer. And these are things I always think about when I'm competing. What's a little pinch of something I can add that creates that tiny feeling of unexpected, and it's sitting in my kitchen drawer at home?